Hello there, film nuts. How are you all doing tonight? I hope your weekend has been filled with joy, laughter, and some good old-fashioned binge watching. Today we're going to talk about a movie that has been dear to many hearts for generations, Batman.
Dear is stretching it a bit far if you ask me. I mean, sure, there were moments of enjoyment, but overall this film was just, hey. But let's not get ahead of ourselves now.
Tom, my friend, you know, we always have to start with the positives before diving into the negatives. Now, Batman, it's a classic. I mean, Adam West as Batman, Burt as Robin, who could ask for more? It's pure campy gold.
Rolls his eyes. Pure campy nonsense is what it truly is. The acting was, let's say, enthusiastic. And the plot, well, there wasn't really a plot to speak of.
Oh, Thomas, you are just too harsh sometimes. I mean, think of all the great lines that Adam West has in this film alone to the Batmobile. Or my personal favorite, let's get nuts, folks. Let's go crazy. Now that's quality entertainment right there.
Fire-o, you know what they say, Timothy. If you can count the number of lines in a movie on one hand, then it's probably not worth watching. But enough about my disdain for this film. Let's hear your thoughts on the plot, shall we?
Well, Thomas, if you insist on discussing that plot of Batman, I suppose we could talk about how Bruce Wayne is a wealthy billionaire philanthropist who moonlights as the masked vigilante known as Batman. He and his trusty sidekick Robin fight against the sinister schemes of various villains such as the Joker, Catwoman, and even the Penguin. Oh, I almost forgot there's also the classic struggle between good and evil, right and wrong. Justice and injustice. Well, you know what I mean. In all seriousness, though, the plot of this movie is pretty much just an extended episode of the TV series stretched out to feature length. It's campy, over the top, and unabashedly cheesy, but that's exactly what makes it so entertaining. The camp factor is through the roof, with ridiculous dialogue, overacting, and overly dramatic camera angles. It's a perfect example of the campy 60s Batman TV show transferred to the big screen.
Arrow. Oh, my aching head. Timothy, I understand you have a soft spot for this film, but honestly, it's like watching paint dry on a wall covered in more interesting patterns than what's happening on the screen. The plot is non-existent, and the humor is so dated it makes me want to, reach for the remote and switch channels. But since we are stuck with this monstrosity of a movie, let's talk about one scene in particular that really stands out for me. You know, the one where Batman and Robin go undercover as a couple of painters to infiltrate the villain's hideout? Yeah, that one. Now tell me, Timothy, how did they not get caught with their masks on? I mean, come on.
Well, Thomas, you know, it's a movie. Suspension of disbelief is required when watching films like this. Besides, the whole point of that scene was to set up a series of mishap-filled events that eventually lead our heroes to uncover the villain's dastardly plan. And besides, who doesn't love seeing Adam West and Burt Ward in tight painter's pants? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge in all seriousness, though. You do bring up a valid point about the plot or lack thereof in this movie. It's more of a string of disconnected skits stitched together with a threadbare plotline about Batman and Robin thwarting the schemes of various villains. But hey, that was the style back then, right? It was all about campy fun and over-the-top antics.
Sigh. I guess you're right, Timothy. We gotta accept this movie for what it is. A cheese-filled, campy, 1960s nostalgia trip that somehow managed to stumble its way onto the silver screen and into our hearts. But let's face it, Batman deserves better than this adaptation. So, my question for you, Timothy, is there any interesting behind-the-scenes tidbit or trivia you can share about the making of this masterpiece? Something to maybe, just maybe, redeem it ever so slightly in my eyes?
Well, Thomas, I'm glad you asked. There is one interesting behind-the-scenes tidbit about the making of Batman that I think you might find intriguing. Do you know how they achieved some of those impressive flying scenes with Batman and his trusty sidekick, Robin?
Yawn no, Timothy. Please enlighten me. I'm all ears, or rather all eyes on you.
Well, my dear Thomas, it turns out that the impressive flying scenes were actually achieved using a combination of cables and wires carefully hidden from view by clever camera angles and editing techniques. The actors would perform their acrobatic stunts on suspended platforms while being pulled upwards by these concealed cables. It's quite an impressive feat, considering the limited technology available at the time.
Raises eyebrow, so you're telling me that none of those incredible flying scenes were actually filmed in mid-air? I thought they had some newfangled cutting-edge CG back then. What a letdown.
But Tom, you're forgetting the magic of special effects and practical old-fashioned filmmaking. It's all in how you frame your shot and edit together the footage to create the illusion of something more spectacular than what actually occurred. Besides, who needs CG when you have the talented stuntmen and women of the era willing to risk their lives for a few seconds of screen time?
Sigh, I suppose you're right, Timothy. I just wish they could have spent a bit more time on the plot or character development instead of focusing solely on these ridiculous stunts. But hey, at least we can laugh ourselves silly watching it, right?
Well, Tom, you bring up a valid point about the lack of attention given to character development and plot in Batman. However, I think we need to remember the era in which it was made. The 60s were all about campy, over-the-top entertainment, and this film delivers on that front, albeit not always gracefully. But let's not dwell on the negative, shall we? Instead, let's shift our focus to the special effects and filming techniques used in Batman's. One of the most impressive aspects of the film is the way they managed to create the illusion of flying scenes without the benefit of CG. As I mentioned earlier, a combination of AM cables and wires were used to suspend the actors and platforms, which were then hidden by clever camera angles and editing techniques. This resulted in some truly breathtaking aerial stunts that still hold up, albeit somewhat more visibly dated today. The use of color and lighting also deserves mention. Batman's iconic costume is vibrantly colored, with primary colors like AM yellow and purple dominating the palette. This contrasts nicely against the darker tones used for villains such as the Joker and Catwoman, giving the film a distinctive look that screams 1960s campy fun at every frame. In conclusion, while Batman may not be considered a masterpiece of cinema, it does excel in providing mindless, escapist entertainment. Its campy humor, over-the-top performances, and impressive special effects and filming techniques make it a guilty pleasure for many fans, myself included. So, Thomas, what do you think? Do these behind-the-scenes tidbits change your perspective on this classic flick at all?
Well, Timothy, I suppose you're right about one thing. The actors did bring a certain something to their respective roles. Adam West, who portrayed Bruce Wayne Batman, is well known for his campy and over-the-top delivery of dialogue, which fits perfectly with the tone of the film. He's accompanied by Burt Ward as Dick Grayson Robin, who adds a youthful energy to the duo. Their chemistry on screen, while not necessarily romantic, has become iconic in pop culture. However, I must say that I found the portrayal of some characters to be questionable at best. For example, Julie Newmar's Catwoman was replaced by Lee Merriweather as this version of the character. While Merriweather did a decent job given the limited screen time and, lackluster script, she simply couldn't live up to Newmar's sultry, feline portrayal from the TV series. The same goes for the other villains, who were mostly played by veteran actors like Cesar Romero as the Joker and Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. They brought a level of campiness and campiness to their roles that, while entertaining in small doses, can become tiresome if left unchecked for the film's runtime. But let's not dwell on the negatives, Timothy. What do you think about the portrayal of these iconic characters by their respective actors? Do you have any favorite scenes or moments where you felt the acting really shine through the campy chaos?
Well, Thomas, I think you make valid points regarding the portrayal of some characters in the film. However, it's important to remember that Batman was a product of its time and aimed primarily at younger audiences who were likely drawn to the campy, over-the-top antics on display. As for my personal favorite scenes or moments, I would say that the iconic Batusi dance between Batman and Catwoman, played by Adam West and Eartha Kitt, respectively, is a standout moment for me. It's campy, cheesy, and completely absurd. But there's an undeniable charm in their chemistry that elevates the scene beyond its humble origins. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the cultural significance of Batman as a character. Over the years, he's evolved from a simple comic book hero to a cultural icon, inspiring countless adaptations across various media platforms. His longevity is testament to his enduring appeal, which has transcended generations and continues to resonate with audiences today. Whether it's the brooding vigilante fighting against injustice in the pages of DC Comics or the campy caper we've been discussing, Batman represents something different to each generation. He stands for hope, justice, and most importantly, change. His story of loss and transformation from wealthy playboy to a symbol of vengeance and righteousness resonates deeply with people who have experienced trauma or adversity in their own lives. Moreover, he's an embodiment of the idea that one man can make a difference. He's not perfect, but his willingness to confront evil head on and his unwavering determination to protect the innocent is something we all aspire to emulate in our own lives. In conclusion, while Batman may not be considered a masterpiece of cinema, it does hold a special place in pop culture history. Its campy humor, iconic characters, and enduring cultural significance make it a classic that will likely continue to entertain and inspire future generations. So, Thomas, what do you think? Do you have any favorite moments or scenes from the film that stand out for you?
Well, Timothy, I must admit, while Batman may not be my cup of tea, it does have its moments of campiness that are hard to resist. The iconic characters such as Batman himself, Robin, and Catwoman will surely continue to captivate generations to come. As for the film's portrayal, it's a product of its time, so we have to give it some leeway. But I still stand by my initial assessment. The plot could have benefited from more attention and character development. But, hey, that's just my humble opinion, Timothy. What are your final thoughts on Batman? Do you have any favorite moments or scenes that stuck with you long after the credits rolled? And remember, folks, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like our video if you enjoyed our discussion. We love hearing from our awesome viewers